Oak Bridge Estates looked like something out of a real estate brochure. Kids zipped by on bikes, neighbors waved from driveways, and every lawn was so neatly trimmed it almost felt staged. It was a kind of place where weekends smelled like barbecue and fresh mulch, where folks nodded politely at each other and shared tips about crabgrass and hedge height, and where nothing ever seemed out of place until you spent more than a week under the iron thumb of the Homeowners Association. And one name loomed larger than any other, Miranda Arnett, though no one dared call her that to her face. Behind closed doors, and sometimes barely under breath, we all just called her Karen. Maybe it was the haircut. Maybe it was the way she demanded to speak to everyone's manager. Or maybe it was that she treated HOA rules like gospel and herself as the high priestess. Her house was a fortress on the corner of Maple Crescent. Cameras, signs, hedges so symmetrical they looked fake. And then there was me, Matthew Grayson, lifelong lawman, newly minted police chief of Newport Haven. Most of my neighbors had no idea I climbed a high-end apartment. I kept it quiet, preferred being Matt from down the street. But Karen had a way of dragging the uniform out of me, even when I was off the clock. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and whether your HOA horror stories come close to what you're about to hear. Because what started with Karen nitpicking the color of my shutters would spiral into something far worse. Forged documents, criminal charges, and an arrest no one in our cul-de-sac would ever forget. I met Karen, officially, about 3 months after moving into Oak Bridge Estates. She showed up unannounced, clipboard in hand, inspected my property like she was doing a final walkthrough on a house sale. "Your shutters are 2 shades off from the approved color palette," she said, tapping her pen against her lip. I calmly pointed out that I'd matched the exact code listed in the HOA guidelines. "Well, I know what it's supposed to look like," she sniffed. From that moment on, I knew I'd been flagged. And in Karen's world, once you were on her radar, you didn't get off it. At first, I chalked it up to enthusiasm gone sideways. After all, the point of an HOA is to keep things tidy. But with Karen, it wasn't about community. It was about control. The emails started coming fast. Repaint the curb numbers. Pressure wash the driveway. Trim the hedges with more consistency. And if you didn't do it exactly how she wanted, threats of fines, citations, even hints at legal action. Most folks in the neighborhood kept their heads down, scrambling to meet her ever-changing standards just to avoid a public shaming. I tried to stay diplomatic, but inside, my patience was thinning. She walked the block like she owned it, hand behind her back, eyes scanning for violations real or imagined. And when she bragged at a neighborhood cookout about her friends on city council, about how she could make life difficult, if she wanted to, something in me stirred. See, I've dealt with real power. I've also seen what happens when the wrong people get a taste of it. And Karen? She wasn't just drunk on control. She was about to do something so reckless, so brazen, it would bring the full weight of the law right to her door. It was a Saturday morning in June, the kind that makes you forget the world's messy. Sunlight spilled across the sidewalk. Milo, my golden retriever, was at my feet, tail thumping against the porch. I was off duty, sipping coffee, enjoying the kind of stillness that feels rare these days. That's when I spotted the moving truck across the street. The Johnsons, brand new to the neighborhood, hauling in their boxes. And who else but Karen was already out there, arms folded, guarding her property line like it was a national border. A neighbor's car parked a little too close to her curb. She snapped, "This isn't a public parking lot. Move it now." The neighbor raised an eyebrow, but shifted the car forward a few feet, without a word. That's how it worked here. Karen barked. People obeyed. It was like walking on eggshells in your own backyard. I figured a walk would help clear the tension, so Milo and I headed down the sidewalk. We hadn't made it 20 steps before I heard heels clicking behind me. "Matthew," she called, tone sharp. "We need to talk." I turned, already bracing. She gestured toward the trailer I kept tucked near the garage, used for yard work, discreetly parked, not even visible from the street. "That trailer," she said, "violates HOA guidelines." I kept my voice steady. "It's on my property out of sight, not on the street. That's all within the rules." She gave a tight smile. "Well, I've had multiple complaints. And if it's not removed, I'll have no choice but to issue a fine. I looked her dead in the eye. Was that a board vote or just you? She faltered just for a second, but that second was enough. I knew then this wasn't about rules. It was personal. Over the next week, things went from irritating to absurd. Karen doubled down, not just with me, but with half the neighborhood. A resident got a warning for having a flag that was too large. Another was told their roses clashed with the street's visual flow. She even scolded a dad for letting his kids leave sidewalk chalk drawings overnight. People started whispering about her emails, her surveillance cameras, the eerie way she always seemed to know when your trash bins were a minute late going in. But nobody pushed back. Not yet. The monthly HOA meeting came up, usually a sleepy gathering of about 10 regulars. That night, 25 showed up. The tension in the community center was thick enough to chew. Karen sat at the head of the table like she was Queen of Oakbridge, flanked by the real board members. Mr. Alonzo, Ms. Carmichael, Ms. Radcliffe, and Mr. Tennyson, all of whom looked tired. She kicked things off like she was addressing a courtroom. First order of business, holiday decoration guidelines. Then, without skipping a beat, I'm also proposing a new amendment regarding trailers, RVs, and any unsightly vehicles. That's when I raised my hand. She paused, visibly annoyed. Matthew? I stood slowly. Just to clarify, the current bylaws already allow trailers if they're off-street and out of view, correct? Her smile tightened. The language is ambiguous. Mr. Alonzo jumped in, tone pointed. That's why we don't make unilateral decisions. Any rule changes require a board vote. We don't enforce personal preferences. A few people in the crowd murmured in agreement. Karen's jaw tensed. Then she pulled out a stack of papers. I prepared a draft of the new guidelines, she said coolly. But the moment she passed those papers around, the room turned. It was like someone flipped a switch. Once Karen handed out those new guidelines, the air shifted. A woman from 2 streets over, Linda, raised her hand, her voice shaky. I got fined $200 for leaving a ladder out overnight while painting. That's not in the bylaws. Karen didn't blink. Temporary is relative, she said flatly. It was there for days. A man near the back chimed in. You sent me a notice about my dog barking. My dog's 12. She barely growls. Another woman stood. You told me my lawn gnome violated aesthetic standards. One by one, people rose, voices rising with them, laying out complaint after complaint. Not one of them had received a notice from the board as a whole. It was always just Karen. Sometimes in envelopes with the HOA logo printed in big, bold letters. And suddenly, a thought started creeping through the crowd. Were those even official? Ms. Radcliffe finally stood up, voice stern but steady. We're going to review these one by one. In order. It took a while, but the pattern was clear. Karen had been acting on her own, issuing fines, threats, and so-called official warnings with zero board approval. And that's when I started paying close attention. Because the HOA has rules, structure, protocol. It's not law enforcement, but it's still a governing body. And if someone's forging official-looking documents, if they're using the HOA's name to demand money under false pretenses, that starts to smell less like bad behavior and more like fraud. I didn't say anything that night, but something inside me clicked. I knew how to build a case. And if Karen wanted to act like she was above the law, I was ready to show her she wasn't. Over the following days, the whispers turned into strategy. Quiet conversations at mailboxes, nods exchanged across driveways. Neighbors were fed up, and they weren't hiding it anymore. But Karen? She only got worse. Her emails became longer, more aggressive. Final warnings flew into inboxes for things like leaving porch lights on past midnight, or for having bird feeders visible from the street. She even sent out a memo claiming yard ornaments over 2 feet tall would now incur fines, effective immediately. The board tried to walk it back. Mr. Tennyson sent a clarification email, kindly explaining that no new policy had been passed. Ms. Carmichael followed up an official notice, urging residents to disregard any unsanctioned letters. But it was too late. The damage had been done. Confusion spread, And in that fog, Karen thrived. Then something odd happened. Her perfect lawn started looking a little off. The hedges weren't quite level. A few packages piled up outside her door. At night, I'd catch her pacing by the window, phone to her ear, arms flailing like she was arguing with someone who wouldn't listen. Gossip buzzed. Maybe personal trouble, financial stress, something with her ex. But whatever was going on behind those walls, it didn't slow her down. One evening, while I grilled burgers with a couple friends, Milo stretched out on the grass, half asleep. We heard it. Karen, screaming at old Mr. Jacobs next door because he left his trash bin out too long. The man's nearly 70. His trash pickup was just running late. He didn't even argue. Just rolled the bin back toward his garage with his head low. I was about to walk over, but my buddy stopped me. "She's not worth it," he said. But I watched her, yelling, fuming, throwing one last glare my way. And for the first time, I felt something shift. The letter showed up in my mailbox a few days later. Crisp white envelope. HOA logo at the top, stamped with authority. Inside was a typed notice claiming I owed $300 in fines for multiple violations. The trailer, again. Trash bins, again. And get this, excessive dog barking. Milo, the same dog who barely woofs, unless someone's holding a ribeye. But it wasn't the accusations that got me. It was a signature at the bottom. Signed, HOA Board President, Miranda Arnett Karen. That stopped me cold. Because Karen wasn't the board president. Ms. Carmichael was. That alone made the letter a problem. But the formatting, the weird legal jargon, the demand for payment within 3 days, or else she pursue legal action. That's where things cross a very specific line. The kind of line I deal with in my day job. Forging an internal HOA memo is one thing. Pretending to be the president and demanding money through a fake citation? That's something else entirely. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started collecting. I called Ms. Carmichael. Confirmed she hadn't issued the letter. Showed her the document. She was horrified. "She's using the HOA letterhead?" she asked, voice shaking. "We never authorized any of this." Later that week, Linda, the Gnome Lawn neighbor, brought me a nearly identical letter. Hers demanded $250 for inappropriate garden decor and threatened escalating penalties if the gnome wasn't removed. Same signature, same fake title, same pressure tactics. I told Linda gently, "Don't pay a cent. It's not real." And inside I knew this wasn't just HOA drama anymore. Karen had crossed from annoying into illegal. She was forging documents, using fear to get people to cough up money. And I wasn't going to let it go. After that, things unraveled quickly. Karen wasn't just sending fake fines. She was going full scorched earth. Neighbors reported her walking onto their lawns uninvited, snapping photos of minor landscaping flaws. She'd knock on windows, demand someone step outside, and address a violation. One family caught her digging through their recycling bin, looking, they assumed, for evidence of non-compliant packaging. People were scared to speak up. They thought if they pushed back, she'd retaliate harder. But I had a different plan. Mr. Tennyson, the soft-spoken board member, texted me out of the blue, said he needed to talk in person. We met at a quiet diner outside the neighborhood. He looked shaken, beads of sweat on his brow. "She's gone too far," he said, voice low. "She's not just harassing people. She's forging bank forms, claiming she's the official signatory if she touches that account." I leaned in. "Are you saying she's trying to access HOA funds?" He nodded miserably. "She said she'd file a lawsuit against me if I told anyone." I placed a hand on his arm. "You did the right thing coming to me." Before we parted, he slid a thick envelope across the table. Meeting minutes she altered. Fake votes, email chains, everything. That's when I knew we had her. But then, things took a darker turn. One night, I came home to find a manila envelope taped to my front door. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with an official-looking seal. Newport Haven Police Department. My department. It was a warrant for my arrest, harboring a dangerous animal. It claimed, citing fake reports of Milo attacking neighbors. Only, I'm the police chief, and this warrant was an obvious forgery. It was a felony, clear and simple, and Karen had just stepped way over the line. I stared at that fake warrant for a long time. The crooked seal, the sloppy phrasing, the non-existent case number. It was laughable and infuriating. You don't just forge a law enforcement document and hand-deliver it to the police chief's front door. That's not an overstep. That's a felony with prison time attached. I slid the paper into a plastic sleeve, preserved the envelope, and went straight to my security footage. There she was, Karen, hoodie pulled over her head, looking around nervously as she approached my porch at 3:04 a.m. She taped the envelope to the door and bolted. Even in grainy footage, her posture was unmistakable. Fast, jittery, anxious. Her ego had ballooned into something dangerous. She didn't just want control anymore. She wanted leverage, and she thought a forged warrant would rattle me enough to give it to her. Instead, it lit the fuse. I called Ms. Carmichael that night. Karen just forged a police warrant, I told her bluntly. There was a long pause, then an audible gasp. She said you were under investigation, that we should vote to remove you from the neighborhood. She's spiraling, I said, and I'm done watching. The next morning, I sat down with a local judge, someone I knew well, laid out the documents, the forged notices, the witness statements, and now this fake warrant. His eyes widened with every page. She impersonated the police? He asked. Signed your name on a legal order? She did, I said, and I have the footage. He exhaled slowly and reached for his pen. We're not talking about HOA nonsense anymore. This is criminal impersonation, fraud, maybe even attempted extortion. And just like that, we had a real warrant. This time with her name on it. We kept it quiet. No sirens, no spotlight, just 3 unmarked cars rolling into Oak Bridge Estates on a calm afternoon. Word spread fast, though. Neighbors peeked through blinds, some stepped onto porches. Everyone could feel something was coming. I stood in front of Karen's fortress with Officers Rivera and Johnson at my side. I gave the door a sharp knock. No answer. We waited. Then the door cracked open, and there she was, impeccably dressed, face full of forced calm, but her eyes flicked past us, scanning, searching for a way out. Miss Arnett, I said, we have a warrant for your arrest. Forgery of official documents, impersonating law enforcement, and attempted extortion. Her face drained of color. This is ridiculous, she said, voice high and brittle. You've all conspired against me. I have rights. Officer Rivera held up the warrant. We have video. And signed statements. We know it was you. Karen stepped back, trying to shut the door. Johnson caught it with his boot. Let's keep this civil, he said calmly. For a moment, I thought she'd fight us. But then she looked past us, saw the crowd gathering. Neighbors she'd bullied, fined, belittled for months, now watching her get handcuffed on her own porch. She sobbed, "This isn't fair." Johnson clicked the cuffs into place. Across the street, I saw Linda, standing tall next to Mr. Jacobs. She smiled, slow and stunned. "Guess we're free," she whispered. The court case was swift. Karen pled guilty, served time, lost her home. The HOA restructured to prevent anything like this from happening again. Peace returned, slow and steady. Now, when I walk Milo through Oak Bridge, people wave. They smile. They stop to chat. The shadows are gone. Karen learned the hard way. Real authority isn't taken. It's earned. And when misused, it always ends the same way, with justice at the door.